Hello everyone and welcome back to Sawyer Studios. And I'm not doing a Lego video today. And if you're new to the channel, if you're a recent subscriber, if you don't know this, I have been studying at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign the past 2 years for my master's degree in orchestral conducting. One of the biggest reasons why I haven't been posting a lot of Lego content this past couple days is because I'm working on my master's thesis. I also have a lot of other different music projects that I'm doing. I'm doing a composition for a theory class right now, and actually in the Philharmonia Orchestra, which is one of the orchestras I conduct here at the university, we're doing a 2-day reading session of orchestrations and compositions of some of the students in the class, some of the students outside the class, in a different class, and also a composition that I just composed. And I'm here to talk about that composition a little bit. I want to post a video of the full composition, and that will probably happen sometime next week. But I wanted to sort of debrief about what inspired me to write this composition, what's it about, etc., how I got into composition. So if that interests you, stick around, we're going to talk about it. So the piece is called Our Closed Eternity, and you might be wondering, that's an interesting name. Where did I get it? I think I have to go back to the start. Composition started back in middle school, actually. I think the earliest was, I want to say, 9th grade or something. My parents sent me to a composition summer camp at Nazareth College. We did some conducting there with Nancy Streelau and Jennifer Beller. And it was a very good camp. I wrote some of my very first compositions. I'd written some piano pieces before, but this was like the first time I got to write for multiple instruments. I wrote like a quintet for 2 violins, viola, cello, and trombone, which was funny. And we got to perform our compositions there, and it was really cool. I got to conduct some of them, and it was a good time. It was a really cool experience. It also showed me how much I still had to grow in music. I learned a lot at that camp, and I continued to compose throughout high school. I wrote 3 band pieces, one of them which we did end up playing in a rehearsal, which was really cool, and that went pretty well. So I started composing for band. I composed some more stuff for piano, wanted to compose a vocal piece. Got to college and then started taking music theory, and was like, oh my, like there's so much stuff that I don't know about music. Like at the time I was kind of just teaching myself by ear, doing ditties on the piano and putting notes together that sounded good. I was writing major triads before I knew what a major triad was. I was writing 5/1 progressions before I knew they were 5/1 progressions, because it just sounds here, like 5/1, boom, 5. And it just, I didn't know that was something that was, I didn't know it was called cadence. I didn't know any of that. I was just going off what I hear or heard. And so I started there. I actually started taking music theory in college, and some composition lessons I started to get interested in with my music theory professor, Dr. What was her name? She was super sweet. I feel really bad that I don't remember her name though. So she took a look at some of my compositions. I actually wrote a symphony for my friend group in undergrad. It's on my YouTube channel. I mean, it's MIDI files, so it doesn't sound the best, but we called ourselves the Houghton Hotties because the college was Houghton, and we thought we were some hot stuff, so the Houghton Hotties. I call it the Houghton Hotties Symphony. I wrote a violin trio. I've written a lot. I've gotten commissions during undergrad. Later on, I wrote a piece that actually was performed and is recorded, and you can watch it on my channel, called It Takes a Moment, and that was for a suicide prevention chapel. I'll link that in the description. I'm sure I'll put a little card or something that you can go ahead and watch that video if you want to. I wrote that for suicide prevention. That has meant a lot. Why am I saying all of this? So, in my second year of undergrad, I met this person, really great person, and she was just such a really awesome friend. Probably one of the best friends I've ever had, and we got close. She wrote a lot of poetry, and she shared some of her poems with me, just was willing to completely open up and be vulnerable. And well, I was doing a compositional project, was told that I should write an art song and it would be good for me. So I asked her if I could use one of her poems for the lyrics, and she gave me one called Color My Dreams, and I wrote an art song called Color My Dreams. And it's that really like started me off on this path of not just writing music to write music, but to write music with a meaning behind it. To not write music that's merely abstract, but something that's maybe a little bit more programmatic, something that has a story behind it. And whenever that existed, it always, I think my music comes out a lot better when I actually have a message I want to send behind it. I asked her for another poem later on, and I wanted to compose a piano piece, which I did, and I called it Release the River after her poem. And I came up with this melody, which is just these 3 notes, F, E, G. And in the context, it technically is a little bit more than F, E, G, but at the very baseline of what this thematic material is, this motive that I wrote, it's just 3 notes. Actually, I was listening to a Leonard Bernstein Harvard lecture, and I found out that those 3 exact notes is Wagner's Fate motive, which I composed these dee 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 da da, which, you know, it figures that someone in history would have used that motive. I mean, there's only so many notes. And so when I found out that was the Fate motive, Wagner, it kind of gave that a history. But now I was making it my own, because it was something that I also felt connected to even before I had listened to Wagner. And it was something that I felt like was a part of me. So I tried to put that in, sneak that in somewhere in some pieces for just it just kind of feels like that's my identity. That's like my motive that I have taken from me, is F, E, G, or in any other key. But that's been with me for the past several years, and whenever I compose music, I feel like it just happens to come up somewhere. Like, it's not even intentional all the time. Sometimes it just happens. I wrote a piece that was supposed to be before COVID unfortunately hit, called Opposition. It's about planets and all that stuff, and that's also on my channel if you want to listen to the MIDI file. But yeah, Our Closed Eternity. This piece is also based on those 3 words. Our Closed Eternity is the title of one of the final poems my friend sent me before we parted ways. And unfortunately, I don't talk to her anymore. Let's just say we weren't able to really keep up a friendship. And it just wasn't good. And it kind of, the end wasn't good for either of us. And so she wrote this poem, though, for me. Specifically, she sent it to me. It's called Our Closed Eternity. And pretty much the philosophy behind it is that eternity exists forever between any 2 closed points in time. If you think about it, if you want to get from point A to point B, you have to get halfway between point A and point B before you reach point B. And before you get halfway, you have to go halfway of that. And then before that, half of that, half of that, half of that. You can always cut distances in half. It will be infinitesimally small, but it will always happen that you can never reach point B, because there's an eternity that exists within those 2 points. Now that's, that is the idea behind it. One of the lines in the poem she wrote me said that I regard our friendship with fond eternity for life. Picture in our closed eternity. And although we don't talk anymore, I regard the time from point A, when I first met her, to point B last time we ever spoke. To be this closed eternity that we share together, that will always exist and will never stop. And that's somewhat of the fuel that I have for writing this piece. Now, it says dedicated to the University of Illinois Philharmonic Orchestra. And that is true. And I've been reflecting on a lot of stuff because I still don't know where the heck I'm going to end up next semester. I really don't. And conducting here at the University of Illinois, I mean, I've had a blast with UISO and the Illini strings, but I've had a special experience with the Philharmonia. I don't know why. I have some theories, but for some reason, that particular group, it's been a lot more. I think I've grown the most in that group. I also feel like I get the most joy out of teaching those classes on Mondays and Wednesdays. And it's something that is very special to me and has really made my graduate career. And so not knowing whether or not this is the last time I'll ever teach this class, attend this school, I've been thinking about how I really don't want some of this to end. But I think, this is another closed eternity that's from the point A, when I first started teaching the Philharmonia, to point B. It's something special. And there's an eternity that exists in between those that will never end. And all the memories and all the times I've had teaching the orchestra or whatnot, they're always going to exist. That's comforting. And so this piece reflects off of the closed eternity. And it starts off with actually the first part of this piece is taken from my not completely, but definitely heavily influenced from the piano piece I composed, Release the River. It's just orchestra for orchestra, and I've also added some more stuff to it since I am more musically educated. But it starts off very unsure. That's how I was coming to Illinois. I had no grounding here. I had no framework. The only person I knew was Donald Schleicher, my former conducting teacher. Everything was kind of just like in limbo. I also I just converted to Catholicism that summer before during COVID. And everything was new. I mean, how to run an orchestra with socially distancing, that was different. I was in a different state I've never been to. I'm doing a master's program. That's some of the hardest work I've ever done. I had no friends here, no family. Girlfriend and I just broke up. It was just, everything was new. New religion. I was figuring a lot of stuff out. This is a lot of the strings express a lot of these chords that never seem to go to one. I think actually most of the time I go to the 3, which were in F major, so it would be A. Or we have F, but with the leading tone, or something like that. And so it just never feels, like nothing ever feels settled. And a couple of times there is a take on my motive. It's not exactly, but it's in the oboe we have the first rendition of it. Actually, that's actually how I derived was originally in B flat major. It was sort of those 4 notes, B flat, E, F, C. I liked how that sounded. And so you're going to hear a lot of different things like that throughout. finally we get to a point where the violins actually straight up play the theme. Dee da dee da dee. Those are the three notes, and it starts to like gain momentum. I started gaining momentum here in Illinois, a little bit more confidence in my graduate studies and conducting and teaching and learning. Starts to pick up, and then I bring back a theme that I haven't touched for 5 years. This is my Opus 46. This is the 46th piece that I've written in my life, way back. And I think this was technically like Opus 15 of mine. I wrote a piece called Ascension to Heaven, which I submitted to an international conducting competition, which I did not unfortunately win. I did get recognized, but I didn't win, unfortunately. I wrote a piece 45 minutes long for full orchestra, organ, and choir, and it was supposed to be a representation of someone's life, death, them sort of reliving it's been a long time since I've looked at this piece. They die at the beginning of the piece, and then the rest of the piece is them sort of like their life flashing before their eyes. People have said that before. So like, as they're going to heaven or as they're dying, they're reliving their entire life until we get back to the accident and the crash. And then they reach heaven and it's glorious and it's like, oh, the choirs and everything. And I was really proud of the piece. That was like my best composition at the time. And it was a long one, but it was something that I was extremely proud of. And so I bring back a theme. I wrote a theme for the piece, and it was the young adulthood motive, being like, hey, I'm off to college, I'm gonna find who I am and all that stuff. And so I felt like, that kind of matches here. I'm off to a new state. I'm off to a level of adulting I've never done before. It's supposed to be very fanfare-like. I was really into fanfares at the time when I was writing this. I found so many cool brass pieces. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know like these all existed. And so I was like, oh, I want to do like a brass fanfare. And so I took that motive. I altered the harmonic progression slightly, just to sort of show a bit more maturing. Reality. We have a little bit of a hymnal section of supposed to be like a liturgical choir moment in here. It's a very short motive. We go back into it. We go into some 7/8/3/4 stuff, and then the dee da dee da da theme comes back, except it's more revitalized. And it's going on throughout the piece. Finally, we get to the slower section. Everything seems to die down. We get into the development. When I was working with Professor Schleicher here, we worked on Sibelius Symphony No. 2. And that was probably my favorite piece I did working with Professor Schleicher at the time. And he's the reason why I'm here. And he's one of the reasons why I've learned so much from here. And Sibelius Symphony No. 2 is something that we worked on, and it was my favorite piece that I worked with him. So I did an homage to Sibelius. This entire development section is based off of the development section of the finale. I even marked it the same, meno moderato, e poco a poco ravvivando il tempo. And it pretty much means like across this entire development, we're going to get faster. So it starts at 60 originally. Eventually we get up to, I think it's like 120. And it goes throughout, it builds, it gets pretty loud, gets super fast as a stringendo, and there's a powerful ending. Which we go back to the young adulthood fanfare. Then we get to this placid moment, and it comes out of nowhere, which I wanted. And this is the part where I feel like this is where I am right now currently. I feel like right now I'm in a place of limbo. I don't really know what's next in my life. I mean, a lot has changed within the past 2 months. My girlfriend and I broke up. I feel like I'm finally realizing my Catholic identity, like who I am and what Catholicism truly means to me and how it affects my life and my decisions. I feel like coming to the realization that I'm going to get my master's, but I don't know where I'm going to get my doctorate. I don't know where I will be, quite literally, next year. It just feels like the only thing I have is myself and God right now. I mean, I do have friends back at home. I wouldn't say I have any like super close friends here though. And I've met people, but it's hard. It's really hard for me to really feel close to someone unless I've had a lot of time with them. And so there's this section that the strings just playing. It's viola and the violins. Then some flutes come in, and then it's solo piano for 7 bars, or comes in technically plays for 8 bars, but solo only piano for 7 bars. And I play a rendition of Release the River, which is where this theme is from. And it kind of just it's a moment where I wanted to remind myself that, that's I can still relive in that closed eternity, and so just because this eternity is ending here doesn't necessarily mean it has to be gone forever, and so that's a very pensive moment. And then finally at the very end, when I finish, everyone comes back in. It's a glorious ending, definitely influenced by the ending of Sibelius Symphony No. 2 finale, but with my own spin on it and with one of my favorite chords. Oh, this is just, I have fallen in love with the modal mixture of using a flat 4 with a lot of different extensions. Ever since I was listening to Jacob Collier talk about negative harmony and how the 5/7 chord, so 5/7 go into 1. If you were to use negative harmony, the opposite of the 5/7 would actually be the minor 4 with an added with the added 6th to that. And it really resolves well to 1. So I've fallen in love with that. The piece ends with a huge 1/4/1 because that's the plagal cadence and that's the classic Amen chord, and I felt like that was fitting. And so yeah, you're just gonna have to wait to hear the chord that I have learned to love. And originally I didn't put it in this piece. I started writing this maybe a month ago, and that's a really short time for me. I had like a little small crisis yesterday, and I was listening to it on my MIDI file, I kind of just like sat back in my chair and I was like, I really hate that ending. Like, I really don't like it. And so I stayed up till 5 in the morning recomposing the ending of the piece because it just was not fitting what I was feeling. And I wanted it to be perfect. I still don't think it's perfect. I'll probably go back and revise it eventually, but I think for right now, this is a good first draft. So this is Our Closed Eternity, and that is most of the influence behind this entire piece. So yeah, I can't wait to play this. Can't wait to post it on my YouTube channel so that you can all listen to it. Hopefully hopefully it ends up being a good piece. I think it will. It's not easy. So we only have 2 rehearsals for it. I have like 30 minutes one day and 30 minutes the next day to get a good recording of it. So we will see. We will see if it turns out well. So I think no matter what, I'll probably end up posting it anyway. So what the heck. Yeah, Our Closed Eternity. Thank you everyone for watching, and if you are in my Philharmonia Orchestra, I want to thank you for such a great time, and that I will never forget this experience, and this entire piece is officially dedicated to all of you for making my past 4 semesters here not just bearable, but enjoyable, and also purpose-filling as well. So thank you for that. I've been trying to like rack my head about like what I should like get everyone something, because you all have gotten me stuff like the past couple semesters, and there's nothing that I could think to get you all that would be more perfect than a composition dedicated to you. So there you have it. Let's play this. Let's play this thing. All right. So cheers, everyone. See you in the next video. Bye.